I'm Alex,
And I'm Brennan.
and we're discussing, was the EU canon, and why does that matter? Also, we have a special guest today. Only good games here.
Hello. How are you all doing? And I appreciate you guys having me today to talk about this wonderful topic that I know we're all very excited to talk about.
Absolutely. It's going to be a lot of fun, and we're very glad to have you.
I appreciate you for having me.
So, was the EU canon? I think all of us being here as EU fans, I don't think any of us are going to argue that it wasn't. Unless, do any of you guys have surprises about arguing that it isn't canon?
Well, it's not April Fool's, so I can't tell you that I joined Disney canon and have to resign my love for the EU and how it was never canon. But it's not April Fool's, so I won't do that today. No, it was canon because Lucasfilm said so, and we'll get into that.
Absolutely, it was. It was definitely canon. I think we all can agree on that.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't be here if I wasn't.
Absolutely. Us EU fans, we do know what is up. We know that the EU was canon. Do we? Who wants to talk about some of the reasons why it was canon?
Well, you see, first off, just because I have a million of these ready to go, Leland Shee, in the continuity database administrator, who is the keeper of the holocron for Lucas licensee, in August 4th, 2004, he said when he was asked if the G and C levels form separate and independent canons from the movies, and she responded by stating that both are part of a single canon. There's one overall continuity. That's just one.
Absolutely, that seems pretty obvious. And a lot of EU haters will say, George said it wasn't canon. Well, George said it wasn't canon multiple times, and he also said it was canon multiple times. So I would argue that George's opinion, as cynical as it sounds being that he's the creator of Star Wars, I would argue his opinion doesn't matter.
No, it really doesn't, because
I agree.
If we say that, let's just say, because I don't even necessarily agree that George Lucas didn't care about the EU. I think he did to an extent. Did he consider it all canon? Probably not. He's had conflicting reports on that throughout the years. But ultimately, his opinion doesn't matter, because if we're going based off of that and we're making that argument that, oh, well, George Lucas doesn't consider this and this canon, therefore it's not canon, then all of Disney-era Lucasfilm isn't all the things they make, whether that be movies, TV shows, books, comics, video games, none of that matters. None of that is canon because George Lucas didn't approve of it, because he's not in charge of it. But we wouldn't say that. We would say, oh, well, Disney is in charge of the company, therefore whatever they release is canon by their standard. And that's fine. That's whatever. That's the fact.
For the same reason, Lucas was in charge when the EU was being made. So, that was canon. And because as being in charge of the company, you get to decide what content is put out.
Exactly.
And,
he allowed it to be released, and he allowed people within his own company to state that it was canon, which means the way I think it went down is simply that he personally, this is kind of speculation. I don't really have to prove because I can't dissect George Lucas's brain, but it seems like he's like, my 6 films are what matter to me. That's what's canon to me. But as far as you all the fans are concerned, everything that's made by these other people that I allow within my company is canon, because my world was those 6 films, but there's a broader universe within my universe that could be created through all these books and stuff, and it's just too big for me to let you all enjoy that and accept that it's canon.
He literally has a quote that says exactly that from
I was going to say, that sounded a little bit familiar.
Yeah.
I probably subconsciously remembered.
Yeah. It's in the introduction category of Splinter of the Mind's Eye, the reprint from Del Rey in the 1990s. It was released right before the prequels, and on the very first page, George Lucas says the following. He says, after Star Wars was released, it became apparent that my story, however many films it took to tell, was only one of thousands that could be told about the characters who inhabit its galaxy. But these were not stories that I was destined to tell. Instead, they would spring from the imagination of other writers, inspired by the glimpse of a galaxy that Star Wars provided. What do you think of that quote, guys?
Seems pretty much on point, that he was saying, yeah, I got my 6 films. That's what I guess it's before the prequel, so I have my 3 films, and I'm going to maybe make a couple more. But there's so much more that could be told, and it is canon. Just whether or not, he doesn't even say whether or not he personally accepts it or not. But regardless, he's saying this is canon for you. So I think that's pretty cut and dry right there.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree. I think that's it's clear as day right there.
And then there's other smaller examples too, like how he specifically requested that they don't explore Yoda's background story in
Right.
the EU.
Exactly.
If it wasn't canon, he wouldn't care. I think Only Good Games has a point about that as well.
Oh, are you talking about the Dark Empire thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna say real quick. I know a lot of y'all know this. This is kind of like an obvious one for us in the expanded universe, but George Lucas specifically did not want Darth Vader to return. You know, he didn't want his suit to return. He didn't want he wanted Darth Vader to be out of the picture. He felt that his purpose had been served, and he didn't want them to bring him back. So, you know, he specifically told them he did not want Darth Vader. And someone who doesn't care about a story, or someone, you know, a story that isn't the main story or not canon, why would that matter then if they brought back Darth Vader? So, you know, that's just an obvious one, but
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's pretty strong.
In New Jedi Order, there is a certain character who was slotted to die, and that was due to George Lucas's request, which he didn't want people to get confused about certain things. Which,
Exactly.
again, if it's all fan fiction, why would people be confused? The only thing that matters is your stuff, sir. So why do you need to dictate that within a novel series? Unless you're saying, oh, it does count to the overall universe, and that's why I want to have this happen so there's no confusion.
And then there's the point of the Dark Lord trilogy, as it became known, which is consists of the novels by Matthew Stover and James Luceno that consist of Labyrinth of Evil, Revenge of the Sith, the novel, and Dark Lord, The Rise of Darth Vader, the novel. These novels were specifically marketed as the official prequel, an official sequel to Revenge of the Sith. They were sold as that. Why would they be sold as official sequels and prequels to the movie if they were considered to be non-canon?
It's true. Are we allowed? I don't know if we're allowed to, guys, but are we allowed to say? I mean, it's been a long time. I mean, I figured most people know. Are we allowed to say the character from New Jedi Order that had, you know, Anakin? Obviously, Anakin Skywalker. I mean, that's pretty big. I mean, a pretty big point right there. I mean, he didn't want people to get confused, I guess, or maybe to take away from Anakin Skywalker. So he felt, you know, we need to kill Anakin Solo, which, I mean, I think that's a pretty good indication that he cares about the story. I mean, why would he care about someone's name that in a story that didn't matter to him, that was just, you know, some offshoot story, if it wasn't going to affect the future?
Yeah, or, I mean, Brennan mentioned earlier Yoda. If it's all fan fiction, then it really shouldn't matter if they give any backstory to Yoda, because it doesn't count to his universe anyway. But he actively said, no, you are not allowed to, because it was canon. And if they wrote something about it, then it would count. And he didn't want anything told about Yoda.
And he had a rule about Wookiee Jedi as well. He didn't want too many Wookiee Jedi to show up for whatever reason. He wanted there to be very few Wookiee Jedi, because it was said that it's a rarity for a Wookiee to have the Force. And in the EU, there are only, I believe, 5 examples of Wookiee Jedi. You've got some obvious ones like Lobaka from Young Jedi Knights, and you've got Tyvoka from Jedi Council Acts of War. Or no, he was from the Stark Hyperspace War. He was from one of those. I can't remember which comic there he was in, but there's Tyvoka there, and then there's Gunji from TCW. And then there was a Wookiee Jedi who appeared in the Wizards of the Coast source material. And then there was a Jedi who was a Wookiee named Rur, and Rur was in the Dawn of the Jedi comic. So there's very few Wookiee Jedi compared to like all of these other species that have many different members of them that are Jedi, because Lucas specifically said, I don't want there to be lots of Wookiee Jedi.
Only some. Yeah.
In New Canon, there's already the same amount of Wookiee Jedi as was in the entirety of the EU. So, like, that's pretty crazy, you know?
So basically what you're trying to underline here is that these parameters were set for a reason, right? So we're basically saying that, you know, someone who didn't care about a story, why would they care about anything that happened in the story?
Absolutely.
Another thing, we were talking, not when we started this recording, but beforehand we were talking about the video game The Force Unleashed. And I have a quote here from 2008, which was an interview with TheWire.com with Leland Shee, where it said, Lucas approves every important addition to the canon. The ambitious story beats contained in the new game, The Force Unleashed, were permitted only after he signed off and spent hours talking to developers about the relationship between Darth Vader and the Emperor. Also, there's an interview with Daniel Wallace on writing the Jedi Path source in Times interview from 2010, where it says that everything in the Star Wars publishing universe is canon. Though George Lucas retains creator privileges to override anything he wants, Lucasfilm employs the keeper of the holocron, Leland Chi, to keep it all straight. In this, Star Wars is unique from most other franchises. DC, for example, keeps the Batman comics separate from the Dark Knight movie and Arkham Asylum video game and other things like that.
I think that's a good point to make. I'm glad you brought that up because, I think a lot of people think that we just get these quotes out of thin air, but you can research everything we're saying and there's proof of every bit of it. So we just want to make sure that everybody knows that this isn't just, random quotes we're throwing out here. Everything we're saying is based off facts. So
yeah, and these people who are saying this are literally employees who are employed by George Lucas, right? They've been hired by Lucasfilm, which is under and operated by George Lucas. All of these people, you might say, well, that's not Lucas. What say do these people have? They were all hired by Lucasfilm. These are all Lucasfilm employees who are saying all of this. Like Leland Chi, the holocron keeper, it was his job to keep continuity.
Yeah.
And the authors there and editors and the Sue Rostonis and all of these people who knew what was what told us in multiple quotes in multiple places that it was canon.
The person you just spoke of, the woman you just spoke of, do you guys want to speak on her? Alex, do you want to say anything?
No, go ahead. I don't have anything to add there.
Okay.
Well, Sue Rostoni, she was involved in several aspects of Star Wars. I think she was heavily involved in New Jedi Order and Legacy of the Force and Fate of the Jedi. I believe, this wasn't Sue Rostoni, but George Lucas's daughter was with Dave Filoni talking about TCW, the Clone Wars, and Dave Filoni was trying to take credit for Darth Maul's design in TCW, which TCW is the Clone Wars, I should probably say, but Dave Filoni was trying to take credit for the look of Darth Maul in TCW, and Lucas's daughter said, "No, we got it from that old comic, Visionaries."
Oh, right, I remember that was funny. They tried to lie, and I'm like, bro,
Exposed.
really funny clip.
One point that I wanted to make is Star Trek. The Star Trek universe has novels as well. It has its own expanded universe. But this expanded universe was very, I would argue, poorly managed. The books would contradict each other. The books would contradict the show. The video games, comics, books, they would all contradict each other because they were never stated to be canon. Unlike with the EU was stated multiple times to be canon, and while there were some bumps in the road for continuity, it was mostly smoothed over, and it was a concerted effort to stay in one universe as one canon. The Star Trek stuff was never said to be canon, and that's why it was never made with the intention of it being canon. It's an important detail when, you look at these different universes. Why the EU succeeded is because it was considered canon. And the secondary topic is, why does it matter? And it matters that it's canon because you could have had a universe where it's self-contradicting over and over. But because it was considered to be canon, it mattered so much that they decided to make a concerted effort to make the continuity line up. And that's why it matters to me. It connects to each other so much because it was considered to be canon. And that's why it matters in this argument about was it canon, was it not? It matters because it means everything to it. If it was never considered canon, then why are there all these great connections? If it wasn't considered to be canon from the get-go, it would have ended up like the Star Trek expanded universe.
Actually, also, I have a perfect quote right here from my boy, my man, the best man himself, based Kevin J. Anderson. All right, from the Dark Empire collection from 1995 on the topic of connections and everything. Right. So Kevin says this. He says, other writers besides myself and Timothy Zahn are writing further adventures in the Star Wars universe, all of which will begin regularly appearing in your bookstores. Each installment changes the characters and the galactic situation in the overall saga. The Star Wars universe is complex and vast and internally consistent, and we authors have to keep it that way. The details established in the films are clear-cut and obvious to follow. A bigger problem comes when we authors need to be consistent with each other. Since we are writing most of these novels concurrently, we have to be fully aware of the other developing stories, even though our novels are set in different time frames. Lucy Wilson at Lucasfilm has been our primary contact and conduit for information, offering her own suggestions, and helping keep the stories unified. she has told us that we don't necessarily have to refer to everything that happens in the other writers' adventures, but we must make certain that we just don't contradict anything.
I think that's a great quote, and I'm happy you brought that up, because I just think that's even more, I just think that's more principle right there, showing that what we have, the story that we love, was definitely planned, definitely canon, and wasn't just some side little story here that was going on. This was something that was really approached by many different people. A lot of people had conversations to make sure everything flowed correctly, because the fans are going to be able to notice any inconsistency, anything that's not, in continuity. So I think it's important that quote, is brought up, because it shows that, people were working together on this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a good point, and it goes right back into why is it important that it was canon, and you answered that very well. But what does it mean to you guys, like personally? Why do you care that it was canon? And I think Only Good Games made a good point about it wasn't just a side story. Because when I read the EU, I like to read the EU as this is like every bit of it's important. It was never considered to be a side story, like you said. It was considered to be this major. So, like, talk about that a bit. Why do you guys care? To you guys, why was the expanded universe canon? What does it mean to you? The importance of why it was.
Only Good Games, you go ahead.
I mean, for me personally, I think just this is kind of off topic of what it means for me, but I wanted to mention this real quick anyway. I mean, there's a lot of the books that say the saga continues, the story goes on, the fate of, different things like that, and basically are telling you that this is what happens after Return of the Jedi. So,
that's a great point.
Exactly. I just wanted to bring that up. But what it means to me, I mean, why do I care about something being canon, basically? I mean, imagine if you studied for a test just to find out you weren't having it. And I mean, maybe that's a weird example, but I just feel like, we read these stories and we love these stories because to us, this is our universe, right? This is the expanded universe. It's not, I don't even like to, I know this might sound weird, but I don't even like to call it the expanded universe half the time. I just call it Star Wars, because to me, it's Star Wars, and that's the natural continuation of Star Wars. And for me personally, loving this ever since I was a kid, growing up watching, the original trilogy on VHS when it first released. I'm not that old. I wasn't in theaters when it first came out, so I watched it first when it was released. Whenever it was released on VHS in the 90s is when I first watched it. And, ever since then, I was so attached to it and just so in love with it. So, I got into the expanded universe late. I got into it about 2013, 2014, right before Disney took over. So it was crushing for me to find out that the story that I loved and got so invested in was not the canon story, and that children weren't going to be able to see and hear the same stories that I'd fallen so in love with. And a character that I was, am, highly connected with is Luke Skywalker. And the reason so is because his stories and his journey felt really similar to a lot of the things that I was going through in life, and some of his, just the way he carried himself and his adventures really felt a lot like my own life. So it felt like as if part of the story, it was me being Luke. So I really connected with his adventures after Return of the Jedi. And I always felt that the movies were just like a prequel for what he was about to go do, after Return of the Jedi. So it was always it's like I've always been waiting, when I was younger, I was always waiting to see what happened after, Return of the Jedi. And we just never got that movie form for the expanded universe. And so for me, just to kind of get this down to a summary, I mean, it means everything to being canon, but it being not canon doesn't kill my enjoyment for the story, and it doesn't make it not canon to me. So every story I've read is canon. That's my Star Wars, and there's nothing anybody could ever say to ever change that. So, the characters I love from, junior Jedi Knights, young Jedi Knights, all the way up till the end of Fate of the Jedi, that those are my characters, and I just think it means everything to me, and it really makes me sad that the main canon isn't our canon, and it makes me sad that, like I said, the children won't be able to experience some of these. I mean, some of these stories aren't just Star Wars stories. These are stories that can really affect your life, can really change the way you view things, and maybe even handle different situations in your own life, or maybe problems you have going on. And I think for children, some of this stuff is really educational, and for it to just all be thrown out of the window, 40 plus years of work and hard work by different people focusing on this continuity, it's more than criminal. It's just a slap in the fan's face. It's a slap in the face to what the story even meant, and it means everything. But I'll say this, it not being canon isn't going to ruin it for me. And like I've said many times with both you, Alex, and Brennan, that I do believe the expanded universe will come back one day. I think it's just a matter of time. And I think how it comes back is will be up for debate if we like it or not. But if it comes back in the same fashion as it was, and in the same strong continuity that it was, I think that, we're going to continue with Sword of the Jedi and be set up for success to keep moving on. But that's what it means to me, and I'll let you take it from here, Alex. I just wanted to give you guys a good statement for why, how much it means to me, and what it being canon means to me as well.
Alex, I don't know how you're gonna follow that, because that was
Beautiful.
everything I feel summarized.
Yeah, yeah. But I'll try. I'm pretty good at making up speeches on the fly, so we'll see. But yeah, I don't know if I'd say that the expanded universe is everything to me. It's a good portion of my life. It's become a big portion of my life, but there are definitely other things. But I will say this. I love the EU more than I love the movies.
Yeah.
I grew up watching the movies. I liked the movies well enough. But I fell in love with Star Wars, really, because of the expanded universe. I didn't really know about the expanded universe. I've told this before to other people in the past and other live streams and other things, but not everybody knows it. But, I played The Force Unleashed when I was younger. I didn't know that was canon or anything. I just played a video game. But I only really watched the 6 films, and I didn't know about the expanded universe. And then the sequels came out. Not to hate anything. I watched 7. I liked it well enough. I had nothing else to compare it to. But it was the first Star Wars film I got to see in theaters. Because when Revenge of the Sith came out, this is how young I am, I was 3 years old. Or 4 years old, sorry, it's 2005.
I wasn't even born yet when Revenge of the Sith came out.
I was 10.
Yeah, so I was a little boy, and so I didn't get to see any of those in theaters. I saw them all after the fact. But so the first Star Wars film I got to see in theaters was Episode 7, and I liked it well enough. I mean, I was a little bothered by Han going back to his roots or whatever. Not to get too much into that, but it was Star Wars again. I got to see it in theaters, so I was fine. Then Episode 8 happened. I won't get into it, but my love died. But I did find Kylo Ren somewhat interesting. So I Googled stuff about Kylo Ren. And in that, I found out about Jason Solo. And I found out about his story. I think I actually found Ryan Kennel first, talking about Jason Solo and comparing him to Kylo Ren. And through that, I eventually found Matt Wilkins. And I started binge watching those videos, learning about the expanded universe. And then I too started to watch and read the expanded universe myself. And I fell in love with this universe. And not to mention the year that I was reading it was a tough time for everybody, lockdowns and everything. And also the year before that, I'd had a really personally bad year. So it got me through a lot. It helped me not think and to just be in another world for a bit. And like you said, Only Good Games, that's my story after Episode 6. That is what happened. Those are everything that came after, starting at Truce of Bakora all the way to Fate of the Jedi. That is the sequels to Star Wars. That's freaking 7 through 1,000,000 or whatever, however you would number those. I've already tried doing that with Dark Empire and Heir to the Empire, but the point is my Star Wars. It's my universe. And whether or not it was canon wouldn't affect my enjoyment, but the fact that it was and people try to claim it wasn't really bothers me. I don't mind if people enjoy the new stuff. I'm glad that they have more to enjoy. If they enjoy the new canon, all the power to them. But why do you have to take down something I love or claim it wasn't canon just to prop up your universe? If you like it, that's fine. But don't bash somebody else's love and make ignorant, false comments simply because you want to make yourself feel better about your own timeline. Mm-hmm. And so I don't want to get too ranty there, but no, I agree. This is my universe. It's what I love, and it's what I'll stick by for the rest of my life. It's introduced me to all of you and so many other wonderful people. I have the expanding universe entirely to thank for that. And I guess that's where I'll leave it.
You guys make very, very excellent points there. there's so many things I agree with in both of your statements. It's important to me that the expanded universe was canon because these are the stories I fell in love with, and to know that they were considered canon, like that's so important because it means that this universe I've fallen in love with isn't just a side story that was never cared about. Lucasfilm cared about the expanded universe, poured so much effort into the expanded universe because it was canon. And this universe that I love so much, it's a great point, Only Good Games. The expanded universe is Star Wars. Not even calling it the expanded universe because it is Star Wars. It completely is. And the expanded universe is shot past my love of the movies that I had this love for the movies, and I loved without the expanded universe, I prefer Star Trek. Like the expanded universe is Star Wars. It embodies Star Wars. It is the part of Star Wars I enjoy the most. Like Alex said, I like the movies. They're fine, good movies, but without the expanded universe, what is there to it? Like the expanded universe adds so much. And the fact that it was canon is important for all of these reasons that we've talked about here.
Not to mention enhancing those films that we watch.
Absolutely.
Like with Plagueis with episode 1.
Exactly. That's a great point.
Gaps, yeah.
I mean, Darth Plagueis alone is such an important book, in my opinion. I think for anyone to ever say that's not canon, that's just such a crime.
A crime against humanity.
It just hurts, doesn't it?
But that's a really good point. Everything in the expanded universe, and in my personal opinion, does nothing but enrich the movies and make them better. So that's a great point, Alex, and I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, absolutely.
When Ayla Secura dies in episode 3, do I care? After I read the comics with her, yeah, maybe I did shed a tear because now I care about her, and it enhanced that scene for me in the movie. So stuff like that in the expanded universe can do so much for your rewatching of any of the films.
It adds so much context. Like, I explained this to my dad for like a half hour because my dad does not love the prequels. He doesn't hate on the prequels, but they weren't his favorites. And I explained that Plagueis adds everything.
Exactly.
The prequels. It explains everything, puts everything in context. Without the expanded universe, they're good movies, I guess. But the expanded universe, like Only Good Game said, it enriches the movies. It elevates them.
I mean, once you've read Plagueis, you watch episode 1 with a whole new set of eyes, and to me, it makes the movie so much better. Not saying episode 1 wasn't a good movie, but episode 1, once you, my bad, go ahead.
No, I was saying I really like episode 1, but yeah, go ahead.
But once you've read Plagueis, I feel like you just see so many more things going on that you didn't ever begin to think about. If you had just watched the movie without knowing who Darth Plagueis was. So, I mean, I think anybody who I would assume most people listening to this have probably read or listened to an audiobook of Darth Plagueis. But if you haven't, I definitely would recommend that one. So I just wanted to say that one because that one is such an essential part of the expanded universe. And to me, like just to drop the expanded universe style, just an essential part of Star Wars that is super important to the films and just the overall plot of the story.
Absolutely. That's a great point. When you watch episode 1 after having read Plagueis, you get to see the hands that were moving the chess pieces around. The chess pieces are being moved around in the prequels, but we don't see who's moving them. Plagueis explains all of that. We get to know so much more about the whole context of everything. It provides the perfect backdrop for the prequels, and your enjoyment is so much enhanced by having read Plagueis. It's an important part of Star Wars. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, politics isn't boring. In fact, it only enhanced episode 1 a million times because Plagueis is one of the most political Star Wars books ever.
Yeah, if I was a kid, I'll tell you this, I was never much a reader as a kid, but if I had actually been able to sit myself down and read Plagueis, I think I would have loved it. But like you said, though, I mean, when you're young, reading about politics definitely probably isn't your most, favorite topic.
I think that's a lot of our thoughts, though, about,
33 minutes.
I think my last thing I'd want to say real quick is I just want to shout out to some channels real quick that I think have, me being in love with the expanded universe have done nothing but also enrich my view of the expanded universe, because anytime I finish a book, finish a story, comic, whatever, what have you, I go to YouTube and I look up videos about it to watch. I look for other people's opinions, good or bad, because I want to see what they thought. So I want to shout out to, of course, Brennan, Quinn Lavas, Magnino, Alex. I want to shout out to Marcel, the Revenchist. I want to shout out to Matt Wilkins, such a great guy. And I mean, his videos alone are a huge reason why I love the expanded universe, because when I first came to YouTube and was looking at videos, he was the only person I could find, and really the only person I could find that just had his face on the video, and I never understood who is this guy right here, and I really became obsessed with his videos, and I ended up binge watching all his videos, and he taught me so much stuff. And another person I want to shout out as well is Christopher Nelson. I mean, his channel is seriously like just an encyclopedia when you sit down and watch it. And I just want to shout out, let me think anybody else here I'm missing. There's so many more people I go on, but just those. And really just want to say a big thank you to Matt, especially because I feel like he led the expanded universe in a really dark time on YouTube, when maybe a lot of other people had kind of just felt depressed and felt like there was nothing coming. I felt he did a good job of keeping a spark going, and there were many other people, so I don't want to just give him all the credit, but just want to shout him out. And I appreciate you guys having me on today, just as a new person here on YouTube to talk about the expanded universe. So just wanted to say that.
Of course, we were literally nobodies just a while ago. We're still nobodies. We're just slightly more recognizable now. Literally, like how you feel about coming on with us is the exact same way I felt the first time that Matt Wilkins asked me to come on a live stream. Asked me. I didn't have to ask. He asked me. No, it's you're right about Matt though. Like, it's not all on his shoulders. There's a lot of people involved. We had the whole billboard that was up right next to Lucasfilm headquarters for a while that would continue Legends. Twin Sun Foundation. They were absolutely quintessential with that. But Matt Wilkins on YouTube was kind of the face for a while because there weren't too many YouTubers. It started happening in the last couple of years, but for a while it was pretty much just Matt. And a couple like really small YouTube channels that were doing stuff, but he was the only one that was like gaining traction and like actually being like a real big voice talking about the expanded universe. And it's thanks to him that I even know about it, really, and looked into like his reviews and then actually started buying stuff from it. And it's all thanks to him because I mean, he is, he may be brain leaking a bit. He's got a lot of kids, but he is like the, I don't know, like the guide.
Do you want me to edit out the brain leaking thing?
No, I think it's funny. I mean, you can if you don't want it there.
Okay.
I think he'd find it funny. But anyway,
and I think how to relate this kind of back in a way, just to say, I think it relates back to why does the canon matter and everything. I mean, this guy right here, Matt Wilkins, devoted nothing but his time for years, and nobody asked him to do this. He did this out of his love for this universe, for this story, for our canon. This is our story. So, I just think, just to relate this back into our topic, I mean, if you watch Matt's videos alone, the conviction and the dedication he's given to the expanded universe. I'm just going to stop calling it the expanded universe throughout the video right now because it's just Star Wars. So just the dedication he's given to Star Wars is so commendable, and I give him nothing but my respect. And that's why I wanted to be able to say this on this video, because he's such a great person, and he has really helped just everyone kind of understand how canon really the expanded universe was, if anybody had any doubts, in my opinion.
Yeah, his little blocks video was really helpful to me when he explained the hierarchy of canon.
Yes, sir.
Yep. So, to summarize, it was canon, and that is important to each and every one of us because we have fallen in love with this universe for a whole plethora of reasons.
Yeah, it'll always be canon to me.
Absolutely.
And continue Legends. That's what needs to happen.
Absolutely.
Sure.
So, thank you guys for watching.
I think it went well, guys, and I hope everybody listening, I hope you guys enjoyed this and stick around for what's to come. And
let us know in the comments why this expanded universe matters to you.
Yeah, why does it, having been considered official and having all this love poured into it, why does that matter to all of you? Because we all have an EU journey. We didn't get here just by accident. We all have a story of how we got into the expanded universe.
Sure.
So yeah, share your story of how you fell in love with the EU. Absolutely. And check out this good man. Only Good Games is on YouTube now as well. Talking about the
Absolutely.
EU that he loves. Talking
Very
about the
base
EU he
channel.
loves. And the EU has been gone for 8 years, but because of how much love was put into it by the people who knew it was canon, fans who know it's canon as well, are still talking about it. Almost 10 years later, almost 10 years
Exactly.
after it's been
And new
canceled.
people are still learning about it.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Love has not died. If anything, it's only increased.
I agree.
Yes. Yep. Absolutely.
Next time. See you
Until
later.
next time.
See y'all later.